This discussion now, Health Minister Dr Joe Phaahla has announced that no lockdown measures will be imposed in the wake of the emergence of another subvariant of COVID-19. The XBB.1.5 mutation was detected in the Western Cape last week. While it's said to be the most transmissible yet, Phaahla says government will also not be reintroducing the compulsory wearing of masks. So, what informs government's decisions around this? Let's unpack this now for you. Bring in the Deputy Health Minister, Dr. Sibongiseni Dhlomo, live to us via our video link this morning. Dr. Dhlomo, great to see you as always. Thanks very much indeed for making time to speak to us. So we've learned a whole lot more about this particular subvariant than we did, let's say, this time last week. We know it's more transmissible, but we haven't been able to link it to severe disease. I imagine that's part of the reason why government decided to hold off on those restrictions.
Good morning, Ian, and good morning to your viewers in the newsroom. Yes, it is true. We did pick up last week, but we were busy consulting, and the minister then was able to do that yesterday. Firstly, starting with briefing the National Command Council led by the President and all other government leaders in the morning, and therefore reassuring them of the processes that has taken place between ourselves and the WHO and also our experts in the country who then reassured us. So in the basis of that reassurance that this is a subvariant which is actually like in the same family of the Omicron, and if you have responded to suppressing it with the vaccines that we use, therefore there was no need to panic. Hence those announcements that you made on your introductory remarks. And therefore we are still urging South Africans, me and you included, that if you have vaccinated or still to vaccinate, you must also go for your boosters and improve the immunity level in your bodies. And therefore we would not find any of these processes worrying us. What we have picked up, however, is that we would like to improve the testing of those who have flu-like illnesses, because if they do actually do testing and maybe we pick up this positivity on the PCR, we will then be able to subject that sample to a genomic surveillance testing to really give us a sort of a sequence as to whether it is a new or a very old subvariant that we are familiar with in our bodies and in the environment.
That's interesting. If we've been able to find that this doesn't necessarily lead to severe illness, in other words, I imagine there are some people who might get infected with the subvariant, they might get a flu, some people might not even flinch. If that's the case, take us through the thinking behind increasing testing.
We will not necessarily be testing me and you if we are asymptomatic. We would only subject those. We're encouraging increasing testing for those who have symptoms or who are probably having flu-like illnesses, because we will then be saying these ones probably are in that cohort of people who might just be getting a COVID-19 infection. Now let's subject them to this testing, increasing it, because maybe from them we will pick up that it is, yes, the same subvariant. That's fine, then let's move on because they are vaccinated or they'll have to be boosted. But if we then do pick up 3 genomic sequencing and a different subvariant, then we will have to worry and then start working there. That's when someone will say, when do we think we can rearrange and maybe come back and say something? Only when we do pick up that we are getting something new that we have never seen before. But every other subfamily of this Omicron is something that our bodies, our vaccines are able to take care of, and then that is why we will not be subjecting any of our citizens to new lockdown or even restrictions. Like somebody was saying, schools are reopening next week. Yes, you may wear the mask if you so wish, but there's no compulsory wearing of the mask, because this is not something that has really worried us, advised by our scientists in the world and also in our country.
All right. So the increase in testing is just really bolstering your surveillance. All right. Fair enough. What we have also seen, though, is that several countries also have, let's say, their surveillance heightened, so to speak. China, we know, has just emerged from pretty stringent lockdown regulations because of how the pandemic has fared there. But we've also learned that this particular subvariant is prevalent in the United States. How is that informing how we interact with, for instance, travelers from these two countries, if in any way at all?
Yeah, you are correct. Maybe you should have completed the story that China, following a really serious lockdown, has actually now emerged into the space where they probably were protected because of this. And a lot of us are not even aware and sure of how strong has been the level of vaccination in China. The statistics are not really available even when you get to the WHO. But whatever that is emerging from China and US, Sandra, is something that we are actually familiar with in our environment. Hence, we are saying even travel restrictions from the people from those countries is not necessary. They may as well be bringing a subvariant who, if we subject it to our vaccinations and our programs, will actually be something that we are familiar with. All we are saying that's heightened in the event you get a reinfection, and the reinfection again from a traveler or from whatever. But let us up our vaccination campaign. Let us up our booster with the vaccines campaign so that we will still be able to probably just get an infection, but it will not be severe enough to take you to the ICU to death. Hence, we are saying let's keep things as they are, but let's just make sure that me and you are conscious of what is our vaccination level. And once we do that, then we are happy because this is not a new subvariant. Is a subvariant that is in the same family of the Omicron that some of our bodies have been subjected to before.
Sure. The experts you, I'm sure, are consulting, the experts that we've spoken to on the show have always warned us that this virus will mutate. In fact, we're actually quite nervous that it might mutate in a way that really complicates our lives if it's able to essentially bypass the kind of immunity we get from vaccines. If that does happen, is the government considering reintroducing something like the lockdown? In other words, would a lockdown be on the cards if, in fact, we do get another variant and not just a subvariant?
You are correct that a virus or any microorganism will always change its form and shape to actually avoid being eliminated, including viruses and bacteria. So this is a normal process we expect. For it to survive longer beyond the lifespan, it will have to really keep on changing its shape and form. That's what we are calling mutation. So this one so far, since we have been exposed, we started with the Alpha, Beta, Delta, and now Omicron, is mutating, at least this Omicron, within the same sort of, it does not really change completely what it looks like. Yes, at the time, when that is why we are saying we are introducing, if you are positive, Asanda, let's subject to get your sample into a genomic sequencing. If you come back and we find that it is this subvariant, well and good, continue vaccinating, continue boosting. But if we then pick up a new variant, as you are saying, completely new, then our scientists will actually come back and advise us. We hope that we don't get there, but they will bring us back and say, look, this is something new. It's probably less transmittable, more virulent. We advise you to do 1, 2, 3, 4. That stage will probably be discussed at that time, but we hope we don't get there. We don't have that information as yet.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I certainly hope we don't get there either. But in our scenario planning, it's definitely something to be considered. But my question, Deputy Minister, was more pointed. Would the government entertain, for instance, the possibility of a lockdown, given what we've learned about its effects, essentially, even on the economy?
You then recall that lockdowns were more strongly at the time we did not have anything to lean on. It will depend again how less effective will be our vaccines towards that new variant. It may as well be that this one that we have, Omicron, we are probably 80-90% eliminating it or able to suppress it. If the new variant were to be brought in and we receive it, and then we are advised that this vaccine is still effective against that, there's no need of a lockdown. The lockdown was stop moving around. We don't have any other thing to hold on to. Sit at home and be there. Now we have a vaccine. And if then scientists are saying, no, you have a new variant, well and good, but our vaccines are still effective also against, or a new vaccine is brought in, it is effective against that new variant, then there is no need for a lockdown, because we just simply mobilize our people, request them to come in for more vaccines, and therefore it will continue in that way. Vaccines were not there Yet then there were lockdowns. When vaccines were brought into the picture, there was less and less and reducing lockdowns.
All right, let's hope that the vaccines will keep working even against a new mutation. I won't push any further. I understand the complexity of the matter. Dr. Sibongiseni Dhlomo, thanks very much indeed for speaking to us. He, of course, is the Deputy Health Minister in South Africa.